In this episode, I talk with Adobe's Josh Haftel about Adobe's Lightroom Mobile strategy. All right. Hey, guys, special treat for you today. I'm sitting here with one of the forces behind photography in the mobile space. Josh Haftel works for a company called Adobe. You may have heard of them. They make some pretty cool products. He is specifically in charge of some of the things that happen on the mobile side that pertain to photographers. So Josh and I are going to sit down a little bit and talk about just some directions in the mobile photography space, where things are going, where they could go, you know, and we're just going to talk. We're just going to talk. So Josh, welcome. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, this is great. It's great to chat with you. All right. So these things right here, mobile, right? Oh, yeah. These, and as you know, for the folks that are listening, I'm holding up my iPhone 6S Plus, and this camera is ridiculous, right? I mean, in a really good way. It runs rings around, you know, cameras that cost a lot of money just, you know, 5-6 years ago. Now we have this in our back pockets. The first question I want to throw at you is, sitting where you sit, making the tools that you guys make, do mobile phones, whether it's an Android, whether it's iOS, whatever, are mobile phones just decimating and killing the middle ground of photography? So we're left with mobile phones and then ultra expensive mirrorless and DSLR cameras, or is it different?
I don't know. It definitely is changing the market. We've seen some companies that used to make a lot of point-and-shoot cameras not make any point-and-shoot cameras anymore, and we've seen other companies come about and create something that's a little bit different. I mean, so you can look at GoPro. GoPro are making basically point-and-shoot cameras, but because they're specialized for the sports and markets, like the much more rugged, so they have a place still. So it's not that they're necessarily like killing one segment, but it's definitely making the whole photography market change and evolve. But it certainly is the case. I mean, we've seen back in the day, there was probably like a nice little corollary was, at one point you had all those video cameras. You go to Best Buy or wherever and you'd buy one of those little over-the-shoulder camcorders for recording your kid's birthday or play recital or the birth of a kid. And then, you know, eventually that flip camera company came around and killed all of those. Yeah. And then they started including video inside of camera phones, and then flip died. So, I mean, there definitely is this like idea that as things get better and better, the convergence happens and there's no need to carry around a separate thing. But that is forcing some companies to think long and hard about how they're going to differentiate. I mean, if we look at Sony, they have a great camera with the RX100 Mark IV, and it does a great job, and it does a much bigger sensor that you can get. So there still is, you know, that's one example. And there's some reasons why you would want to have maybe that kind of camera. I have a lot of friends who are professional photographers that still carry that with them because it's, you know, it's not huge, but it still gives them much better quality. And there's certain aspects of physics that you just can't get around, or we haven't figured out how to get around them yet, where a larger sensor really makes it easier to get certain kind of results that you would need.
Light. Yeah, the larger the sensor, the more light you can gather in there. And we're seeing all these different form factors as well, like DxO. Right, with the DxO1 camera that snaps on to the phone to make it theoretically a better and closer to a pro camera. Exactly. You know, so
there's a lot of stuff, but it's also, we definitely see though, I mean, one of the most telling things you could see though is the number of photos that are being taken. As camera phones proliferate, the number of photos being taken every year is just growing exponentially.
Yeah.
There's an estimate that there's something around 2 billion camera devices in the market today. So that means there's 2 billion things that can take pictures. And you can just imagine how many pictures are being captured on a regular basis. And what that means then is that there's a lot of new photographers being born every minute. For every person or every 10, 100,000 people that's just taking little snaps, there's one person that's just like, wow, this is really cool. This is so much fun. I can really like capture something that nobody else saw before. And I'm so excited about this. And it's just a really cool time to be, where you no longer, it's like the democratization of photography. It no longer is only for people that can afford the time and the money as it was once upon a time. Now it's just anybody, basically. I see kids all over the place of all different socioeconomic situations. From all different countries around the world. They all have somehow a camera phone in their hands these days, and they're all going out there taking pictures. And it's it's an exciting time to live as somebody who's just so in love with photography. So
I know. Yeah, I'm right there with you. But and then you look at it from, I mean, you've seen this ad campaign that Apple has been running, shot on the iPhone, whatever, and you see these big billboards with these amazing shots. And every time I drive to San Francisco and I see they change them all the time. So I see a new shot. I'm like, okay, that was shot on iPhone. But the curmudgeon devil's advocate in my head is like, okay, was that really shot on an iPhone? Or what did they do with the pixels after it came from the iPhone? Did they run it through some fractal software?
But the idea though is like, I think that one of the great things that Apple did with that campaign is they really tried to get people to think differently. Hey, Apple, think different about your mobile phone. It's like, it's not just for the thing that I always keep on going and saying is like, people just always think about your mobile phone or your mobile camera as like it's for pictures of cats and lattes, right? And Apple's like, it's not for that only. Yeah, sure, take pictures of your lattes.
Yeah,
please don't, but just keep on doing it anyway.
I did that.
Share it with us. But at the same time, don't be like, oh man, this is a beautiful scene, but all I have is my phone. No, it's a beautiful scene, and you have a way of capturing it, so use it. I think that's just great. It's great to start changing your mindset that your camera phone. It's not designed to replace your regular, bigger SLR. It's not possible in some ways, at least with the technology we have today. There will be situations in which you need your bigger camera, but you shouldn't look at your phone as like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this because all I have is my phone.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people are still, maybe it's a generational thing, but it used to be like the generation before was, you go out and you take pictures with disposable cameras or you point and shoot or whatever, and with film. And the phrase was, when you get the film back in the envelope, you look through and like, hey, the pictures came out. Yeah. You're surprised that you'd have a bunch of blank shots and you're like, hey, there's actually something on this paper that I paid for. And then you fast forward and, we have the point and shoot generation where people are taking pictures, but they're not actually aware of what they're doing because the camera's doing all the work, and some of them still weren't coming out. And you fast forward to today with these new cameras that are getting smarter and smarter in these phones with focus later and 4K video and all this stuff in your back pocket. And the camera's making really intelligent decisions about at least the exposure settings and capturing really good audio when you're doing video. Now it's removing that did it come out thing. So now it's like you're saying, the world is minting a new photographer every microsecond, right? So, there's new photographers coming out there that are making really amazing imagery all the time. So then what do you do with all that image? Is that the Facebook and is that what that's for? Or like, it's like we're making mountains of data and then what?
Well, there's lots of things that you can do. I mean, at one point you can go out there and you can take a boatload of photos, and going out and taking all those photos, does it result in better looking photos? It may or may not. Like I remember I went to school for photography, and one of the things that they taught you in the beginning was like, here's a theme, now go out and shoot a boatload of photos. Go out there and shoot 10 rolls this week of this one scene and subject, because it does get you thinking in different ways, and it forces you outside of your comfort zone of saying like, oh, I got one, I'm good. And like, no, try different things. Run out of ideas. You will run out of ideas, and it's actually a good thing to try really hard. But then it's like, well, how do you go through and how do you like edit them down to a set of photos that actually looks good? That's another skill that needs to be provided and learned, and it's just not. It doesn't just happen.
That's a hard skill. You're right. That's a hard skill. It's like, throwing babies away. It's like, oh, I love that shot, but it sucks. I got to get rid of it,
I would say literally it's the hardest skill. Like if any one thing, when I talk to my friends, I'm like, oh, I want to learn better photography. It's like, well, learn how to tell the difference between your good shots and your bad shots. Usually the only difference between a good photographer and a bad photographer is the good photographer only shows you their good shots. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
And because everybody, I mean, like the cool thing about digital, like you can experiment. And especially on my phone, I'm experimenting all the time because I don't have to like do this kind of like pre-planned experience. Like, all right, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to take pictures. I'm just out and about and I have my camera. I'm like, oh, what would happen if I did this? And I take a picture and I'm like, ooh, that was really cool. 9 times out of 10 or even 99 out of 100, it's horrible. But I still don't feel any regret. And I still sometimes leave them on my phone and I'll delete them right away. and like just go back in there later on and play around with them. I mean, storage space is becoming cheaper and cheaper. Yeah. We've got the opportunities of going through these things. We've got tools to be able to help you identify what's the good photo, what's the not photo, according to your own personal taste. There's technologies out there that are helping you differentiate between like some photos that you might want to keep versus other ones you don't want to have.
Crazy to me. That is just crazy that we have algorithms that can do that.
Yeah, and it's really great. So the whole idea that we have at Adobe is we want to make people better photographers. That's our number one goal. That's my number one goal, certainly is. I want to help people become better photographers. And sometimes that means like giving you the tools that you need, and sometimes it means helping you just avoid the things that make you not want to do it. There's a lot of times where I don't even do my photography because I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, it's just going to be so much work and so much effort. And I just don't have like I want to do the fun part. I just don't want to do the not fun part, right? And you want to like figure out, well, how can we get away from that not fun part? And that's something that we're always constantly thinking about. It's like, let's focus on the things that actually make it enjoyable, not the super work part of things. And, you know.
Yeah, that's what they say. I mean, that's the success. That's the secret to life. Do what you're good at and what you like, and less of what you don't like, and hire that other stuff out and do more of what you're good at, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know lots of photographers, like wedding photographers, they were, miserable with their stuff until they finally figured out how they could like offload some of the retouching work that they didn't want to do. Like there's a lot of stuff where you're just like, all right, get rid of the hair strands, and it's just a lot of like time consuming effort. So like, yeah, we'll farm that out to some assistant or some other group of folks that might be able to do that in an easy way. And let me just focus on telling the story. Because I think that's what we all get into. Whereas photographers, we just want to tell some story. You can tell a story with one photo or a series of photos. Yeah. The story doesn't have to be deep. It could just be like, wow, look at this sunset. But it's still a story. It's something that I thought of, I saw, I captured. It's a reflection of the beauty inside of me. That's what I remember reading from a famous photographer whose name escapes me. I'm sure that somebody will add it into the comments. But the idea being like, just help me tell that story. And that's what we're all about.
And I'm glad you said that too, because that's one of the things I see missing in a lot of photography, because I have the Apple TVs in the house, and they go to the slideshow and they start showing whatever. If I have it plugged into Flickr, I'm seeing the interesting photos from Flickr, and they're all interesting. You get on 500px and you look in there, it's just awe-inspiring what people are doing. But for the most part, not across the board, but for the most part, there's that lack of story in a lot of photos, or even in a series of photos. Like, okay, that's a really great shot or a long exposure of a pier in, over some still water with some smoke coming up. It looks technically perfect and gorgeous. And then, they always leave me wanting about, okay, what's the story behind that? Yeah, give me a couple sentences that say, hey, I was, contemplating taking a dip, but I did, or something, that puts me there. Otherwise, I have to make it up.
Who I really like, and he does a lot of long exposure work, but he always adds himself in there. His name is Brian Day. He's out in Troy, I believe. He does really cool stuff where he's in there and he adds that like touch of humanity. It's like long exposure, smooth water, kind of like what you're talking about. But then he's there and he's like wearing he has some kind of interesting expression on his face, or he's looking in some certain direction. And you're wondering what's going on? How's that working? So yeah, totally. I love that. It's really cool.
Even if it's something that starts the story in your head. You're like, okay, in the case of that photographer, every shot has a cat in it, you're like, where's the cat? Something like that, that, other than just like, okay, yeah, that's another photo that I could have picked up in So I don't know. So I want to talk about a couple things before I let you go. So we're talking about digital, right? So we have these supercomputers in our pockets that can do all this crazy magic stuff. We've got the magic computers at home that can do even more stuff. We've got software,
magic computers in the cloud,
that's doing stuff that we don't even know about. And companies like you guys are doing, computational photography things in the back labs that are just insane that we don't even know about yet. So why, from your standpoint, why is it that most photographers are still photographers? So if we have, and what I mean by that is, why aren't we using more varied media instead of just the still photography? Because this thing can do so much more than display a two-dimensional image. Why am I not taking photos and then narrating the photos, or doing cinemagraphs or something?
I can imagine that being. I mean, and I think that the number one reason that I keep on coming back to is that there is no medium that I'm aware of today that can convey more information in as quick a time as a photograph can.
Yeah.
As soon as you add a third dimension to it, whether that third dimension is time or the third dimension is like some kind of spatial elements to it, then suddenly you're expected to spend more time consuming that thing. And we're all harried in our lives. We're all busy. We're all like, we don't even know. There's so much stuff coming up that we don't even know which one of those things is important to us or not important to us. And so you need some way of being able to really quickly like, oh, that's important. I want to dive deeper into it. And that doesn't mean that doing more with our photos isn't interesting. It just means like one single photo can stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
It can get you
Change the world.
Get you and convey emotion and meaning and like just information. It's just so much stuff so quickly, unlike anything else.
Right.
And so
I feel like it's like we have all this power. It's like, it's like you're driving around in an awesome pickup truck that has all this space in the back, and you're just carrying around like one bag of flour in it.
I mean, I almost think about it more like simplicity, right? So like the way that you simplify things, like I'm a big fan of food. And so I almost always will translate something into like a food analogy. Look at salsa. Salsa is like 4 ingredients and it's some of the best food in the world.
Yeah.
And you can say like, well, you could put 1 billion ingredients in there. Is it going to get better? Like, it just means like you're going to spend your time picking out the perfect tomatoes, picking out the perfect peppers, the garlic, the cilantro, whatever your ingredients for your salsa is, you're going to simplify that to what you think is perfect. And that's one of the great things about photography. You can spend the time, spend the effort, the thought to just distill it down to what is that exact thing you want people to get away from? What is that emotion you want to convey? What's that story you want to convey? And it's not about like doing more. Less is often more in art, at least.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. What good. I'm an analogy man, so you speak my language with the salsa, and I love food too, so it's perfect.
There you go. We're gonna be best friends.
Salsa, analogies, and photography, man. What else do you need? Okay, I want to round it off with this. So Adobe has an ecosystem for photographers, and in a lot of ways, Adobe is the operating system for photographers, right? So obviously there's the 500-pound gorilla, 800-pound gorilla Photoshop, and then there's Lightroom, which is a slender version that's vertically oriented specifically at us.
We're going to keep that going.
Yeah, but then with that, Lightroom Mobile, how does all this stuff work together? Like, how, from your standpoint, how am I supposed to be using Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile together? What's the recipe?
Yeah. I mean, the idea is that, as you said, we have these different ecosystems. We're trying to fix the core problems in each one of these different states. So Photoshop, as you know, like, it's been around forever, 25 plus years. It's a really amazing product, super, super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those brands that everybody knows, and just everybody's like, oh, I got to know Photoshop.
It's a verb.
So Photoshop is, it's a great product, but it's huge. It's really complicated, and it also has. It's not really focused on one thing or another. I mean, you got people doing video and audio, 3D, and all kinds of stuff. I don't know why I said audio, because it's obviously not true, but that's where my brain goes from time
audio
to time.
With the video is in there, right?
There you go. Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you for that save there. I appreciate that. Throw me a rope there. But the thing that I feel like is about Lightroom is it's focused on photography. That's all it really wants to do. It just wants to be the best at photography. And some of those things that are really important with photography is, I want to be able to find my photos. I want to be able to find the right photos. We just talked about the most important thing for a photographer is to be able to differentiate between the good and the bad photos. So we want to help you with that process. Then we want to make sure that we can help you refine the photos, but refine them with only the tools that make the most sense for you. If you give, especially newer people, 10,000 different tools, they might not use any of them. It's the paradox of choice. We don't want to give you that many choices, because ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to do nothing. We see this time and time again. So going back down to what's the things you need to use the most? But because we're Adobe and because we have these other tools, that's where you have the ability to go into Photoshop for those times that you need it. And I remember when I first started using Lightroom, I would use something like 50-50 Lightroom and Photoshop, just because I was so addicted to Photoshop, but also because Lightroom at the beginning didn't have all the same tools that it has today. As time evolved, Lightroom has grown and tried to fill in those places in which we were constantly going into Photoshop. Now I still go into Photoshop. There are tools inside of Photoshop that I can't imagine ever being inside of Lightroom, for good reason. And it's great because we have this photography plan, so you don't need to worry about it. You can use both. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So I think that's great. But then when you're talking about like the rest of the ecosystem, we're thinking about Lightroom is the photography system at Adobe. Mm-hmm. So we now have, a broader ecosystem. So it goes into Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Web and Lightroom Desktop. Those are like the three main pillars of the Lightroom ecosystem. And so when you're in Lightroom Desktop, you have the ability to synchronize your photos. So you can take a collection, put your photos in there, synchronize it online. And then you can access those photos from Lightroom Web, which is just lightroom.adobe.com for many of the people that don't know about it. Yeah. Or you can access it from Lightroom on your iPad or on your iPhone or on your Android tablet or on your Android phone. So it works and functionality in there. So then you can access your files from your phone or your tablet. You can be able to do things like star rating or pick and reject, or you can do even editing. Most of the edit tools that are available in Lightroom Desktop are available on the mobile side. They're using the same exact algorithms, the same quality. So you're not giving anything up. You can then share them right to Facebook right there, or you can just go back to your desktop. So they're synchronized at all times. So anything you do on one shows up on the other and vice versa. Or you can even start just on your mobile device and then you're taking pictures with your device. So the Android and the iOS versions have camera built into them, the camera that we built ourselves. The Android version shoots in DNG, which is the raw format, so you have access to the full sensor data that you want, and you can be able to change white balance and exposure compensation, highlight recovery, all the stuff that you're used to using raw files. You got that from the device itself. Anything you shoot or add into your phone or your tablet gets then synchronized back to your desktop. So you go back to your desktop, and it's all waiting for you already with any of the changes you made, and non-destructive and all around the way.
And the changes aren't baked in; they're in that sidecar, so I can continue editing with more resolution on a larger screen.
Or you can be like, well, wait a second, what the heck did I just do? I must have been drunk while I was editing this, and I shouldn't edit in the bar. That's the problem. Now that it's everywhere, I find myself doing the weirdest things at bars while I'm editing photos. Like, it's just a bad idea, but whatever.
The internet editing photos and bars. It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Or fun. It's a recipe for fun. It's a fun disaster. A
fun-aster. Yeah.
But that's usually what I am. I'm a fun disaster usually. So the thing is, like, the whole ecosystem just makes it possible for you to do what you want to do when you want to do it without having to worry about, like, where am I and where are my photos and why do I have to think about it? Like, oh, crud, I left that one photo over on that one place and now I have to go over there and get it. No. Like, let's keep everything together and synchronized. And
how does it handle that? How does it handle that on the back end? Without getting too technical with it, but if I have a Lightroom library here on my desktop, which I do, and I'm running Lightroom Mobile on the phone, and I say, I feel like I just answered my question because I'm just going to be syncing a collection, not the entire library. But if I want to get something that's back on my desktop and I happen to be running around Mexico, am I able to get that, or am I just restricted to that one collection that's been synced?
You're right. You're from the desktop. You're going to be restricted to the things you've already explicitly told to sync from a collection perspective. From the mobile device, though, it's everything. So anything that you shot or added on your mobile device will automatically go into the desktop. Okay. So there's a little bit of a difference between which direction you start on, because as you mentioned, you've got potentially hundreds of thousands of photos on your desktop at home, and you don't want them to gunk up your other device. But what we do is we only download selectively, and we clean things up as we go along on your mobile device, because we know that the number one complaint most people have about their mobile devices is that they run out of space.
Yeah,
and that's because
you have to buy a new device.
Like, a lot of manufacturers still give 16 gigabytes as the default option. Like, who knows why?
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
That doesn't work for us.
16 gigabyte phone that shoots 4K. Something doesn't work.
I got a 128 gigabyte phone, and I'm always out of space because I take way too many photos.
Yeah.
But, they're fun. They're fun.
Well, tell me this. Like, so, obviously you work for Adobe, so, you have insider knowledge about how things should go, but also of the competitive landscape, right? So from a consumer standpoint, it's a battle. It seems like there's a battle of, Godzilla, Rodan, Mechagodzilla, all these guys for my photos. These giant companies want my photos. It's Google, it's Facebook, it's Adobe, and all the other also-rans out there that want, because my photos are sticky, right? So how, and I worked at Adobe, so I know that Adobe's part of the ethos is egalitarian and trying to do the right thing for the user. It's and part of the reason why I work there is because it's that kind of company.
It's a great company.
So that said, how, if someone is, like right now you download Facebook or Google Photos, and automatically they start sucking up your photos to the cloud in there, what's the best way to manage that stuff? Do you just turn it all off and use the Adobe stuff, or do you like let it go and then like sync in other directions? From your standpoint, like what do you do?
So, yeah, for me personally, like I use them all, and I have different purposes for them because I don't pay anything for the Facebook upload stuff, right? It's just there, and I have nothing to hide. So like, well, sure, take all my photos into Facebook and then put them up there. And the same thing with Google Photos, put them all up there. I don't care. And then I use it for different purposes. Like the photos that I find like tend to go into Google Photos are like just snaps of friends and family, and it's an easy way, or Facebook is an easy way of sharing things. And those are the photos that I'm not really that concerned about. Like I'm not going to spend time retouching them or editing them. They're not a representation of who I am artistically.
Sure.
They're just a photo representation of memories that I have. And I find that like both Google Photos and Facebook are really all about storing and sharing memories. Whereas the tools and the things that I use inside of the Adobe products are about storing and sharing stories. Right. And it's about like, that's that differentiation I have in my mind. Where is it the thing that I care about from just a memory perspective? And I just, let's share these memories. It's cool. It's done. Versus like a crafted story where I'm going to spend the time picking the exact right image and going for as few images as possible, and then making sure that every part of that image is really well manicured. I'm very meticulous with the photos that I consider to be like my artistic merit photos.
And then where do those go?
I follow a lot personally.
Where do those go? The ones that you are like at the DNA level, working on meticulously. Where do those go? On my website.
Those go on my portfolio site.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So they live there, and then like I call them the junk food photos. Those can go up to the whatever service.
Yeah, let's go on the other, but and there's, of course, what's interesting is just watching that transition, and there's some overlap. Like at one point, Instagram I felt was more about like the artistic side of photos, but as Instagram has grown and grown and grown, now it's like like I see. Not like the majority of my feed are friends, and they're not artistic photos. It used to be the only people I follow on Instagram were like these great artists, the people that I would just like look at for inspiration. And now it's kind of flip flop the entire way around. And the same like in Facebook, and when I was active on Google Plus, like that was a great feed for getting photos out of there, but I kind of like fell out of it, mostly because I don't work at Google anymore.
That's awesome. Yeah, partly because I just, new alliances.
It's good. I mean, like there are so many different ways, and I understand. Like, it's really difficult to figure out like where do you use it for what purpose. But in my mind, like I just make that separation down between like one side is for sharing memories, the other side is for like kind of like more artistic things. And it doesn't mean like I can still have artistic shares of friends. It's not like the subject matter. It's like, well, what are we doing? What's the purpose of it? What am I trying to convey?
Interesting.
And it's really more about like, is it something that's really quick and easy and I just want to be as easy to share as possible? Or am I trying to like communicate something deeper than that?
I love that you said
we all are that way. We all, even the people that are going out there, and we have this discussion internally all the time because we keep on trying to think about like, oh, what about this person and that group and that group and that group? And this is like the consumer, and this is the professional, and there's this group in the middle, and blah blah blah. And in some way, I'm just saying like, well, I am in some ways like I've done professional photography, and you could call me like a professional, but sometimes I'm also that person in the middle, and sometimes I'm the consumer, and sometimes I'm even like just so far over. Like I just did a really crappy Snapchat the other day. Like it's just like nobody would ever like. I don't want anybody to ever see the horribleness of like my feet. Like this is where I'm standing right here, guys. Boom. It's like communicating by a photo, right? That's not a big like. It's not artistic at all. Yeah. It's just more like information conveyance really quickly, and that's something that, like it wouldn't even go onto my Facebook wall. It's just like, where are you? Here. Like that's it.
Yeah. And as like photographers, we like to put things in their neat little boxes, right? So, and corporations do too, where like you were saying, corporation says, hey, the avatar of the pro is this, makes this much money a year and has this kind of camera and owns this many cameras and has 2.5 lenses and all that, and the advanced amateur does this and is all this, and then the amateur is this and the beginner is this. And I love that it's so refreshing that you say, yeah, I can be all of those things simultaneously. So you're chasing the horizon with that stuff.
And so it's all about like your intention and what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? And let's make sure that we make that possible. I mean, the thing that I loved about Adobe products, I've only been at Adobe for less than a year now, but I've been using Adobe products since forever, it feels like. And one of the things I love about it is it's always the tools that Adobe has always made have made it possible for me to communicate or to like be able to share the stuff inside of me with the outside world, even things that I might not have known that I had inside of me before, that it enabled me to help get it out. And I think that that's just really great. We want to keep on doing that, and we want to do that for as many people as possible. And that's where, my excitement about working on the mobile team, because as we talked about in the beginning of the show, you have this group of new photographers that are coming out, and we want to like help them see their potential and see what they can do and understand like the way of communicating visually. I think that art is the best thing that humans have ever done, and probably will ever do. Is like it's the beauty of being able to communicate visually and to be able to do things that are not necessarily solely for pure gain of ourselves. I mean, there's more, there's deeper part to it. I got blue hair and I live in San Francisco, so obviously I go to Burning Man, so obviously I'm going to spout some kind of nonsense like that. I get it. I understand. The hater's going to hate, though. But,
I love that you have like a verbal asterisk in there. I love that. That's awesome. We talk about, you can't pigeonhole me, but allow me to pigeonhole myself. Awesome.
It's the problem with living in San Francisco. We all get, like you said, people love to put people in boxes. And I've been in a box my whole life in San Francisco. It's like, oh, that's the guy that does the thing. And that's me.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a San Francisco / greater Silicon Valley thing where, you meet somebody new and the first question is, oh, so where do you work? So,
you're a techie. All right.
Yeah, I need to put you in the box. Oh, you work at Apple. Oh, yeah, you're interesting. Oh, you work at Adobe or you work at Google, Oh, Tesla, interesting. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just a human thing. We like our boxes. We like our neat little compartmentalization of who people are, so we can, say, hey, that's Josh, the blue-haired Adobe guy. So,
but it's only blue now. It's going to be a different color later on. I change it every 2 weeks. So
I love it. That's awesome. As long as you have it, when you start losing it, it's not going to be a good look.
I haven't lost it yet. Knock on wood.
All right, man. So you mentioned you have a website. What's the website where people can go to see some of the stuff you work on?
Oh, my work? Or
your work.
Oh, it's just my name, joshhaftel.com.
All right. And that's how you spell the last name?
Haftel. Okay,
joshhaftel.com for your stuff. And obviously the giant awesome
Adobe.com. That's the most important one. That's why I'm in this room. That's why they pay me the bucks to talk about, not myself. They pay me to talk about the Lightroom.adobe.com.
Right. Yeah. But the TWiP listeners know all about Adobe, obviously. And they, the fact that you are a competent, awesome photographer, is awesome that you're the guy that's helping Adobe see this is how you speak and the kind of features that we need in these applications to speak to people like us that you can't put us in a box. So yeah. So thank you for that, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you're there.
Me too. It's fun being here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. All right. So that's it. So lightroom.adobe.com for Lightroom, obviously, or just go to adobe.com. You'll find it.
Web. You can get links to Lightroom Mobile over there. So it's one of those things. We have this really cool online product called Lightroom Web that almost nobody knows about because we haven't done a good job telling people about it. I'll take some blame for that. It's got like the ability to go through and do organization of your images, do the editing. You can see all your photos, do slideshows, all that kind of stuff. It's all there. And it's like, when you don't want to bring your laptop with you, it's anywhere in the world. You just log in with the same user ID and password and all your photos are right there. It's cool. So people should try that out too.
That is cool. See, we, yeah, and I'm guilty. I haven't even tried it out yet. And I used to work on the Lightroom team. So
It's your fault. I blame you now. Now I'm passing the blame.
no, that was back in Lightroom 3 era, dude. So I have nothing to do with that. Cool. All right, Josh, man. Thanks a lot for taking the time today. I know this is kind of last minute. I appreciate you carving out time to chat with us.
Oh, anytime. I love it.
All right. Take care, man.